Hello, everyone, and welcome to the COVID-19 live Q&A. If you're just joining us, you're probably joining us in the replay, and we want to say welcome. If you stick around today, we're going to cover some key topics today. Some things we're going to cover are: what are the benefits of the vaccine? What are the side effects of the vaccine, and should I worry about them? What happens if I don't get the vaccine? Will there be another round? And how is the vaccine administered? Those are four main topics we're going to be talking today with our two guests that we have. Up to my top, we have Jay Moskowitz. Jay, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know what you do at Vivage and Well-Age.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm President and CEO of Vivage Senior Living and Well-Age Senior Communities, and as most of you on this call, work in one of our communities. And I thank you for taking the time today to listen to Dr. Gahm, Chief Medical Officer, and myself talk about the importance of this vaccine coming out in the next few days.
Great. And Dr. Gahm, yes, go ahead and briefly introduce yourself.
My name is Gregory Gahm. I'm a Chief Medical Officer for Vivage. I'm an internist geriatrician by training and have a long-standing interest in vaccines and influenza and now COVID.
Great. So let's hop right in. And I do want to let our audience know that today is interactive. If you do have a question, I encourage you to drop it in the comment section, and we will do our best to bring it up during this broadcast. So, Jay, why don't you first talk about the importance of getting this vaccine and how it's protecting the family members and the residents in the community?
Well, the state of Colorado has been kind enough to follow the lead of CDC and move, besides the U.S. staff as 1A employees in priority, they've also moved their residents. If we're going to stop this virus where it's been affecting you as employees and residents, if we're going to stop this virus, we all have to step forth and get the vaccine. We're going to have to work with the families, the responsible parties for the residents who live in communities, and have them sign authorization so we can give the residents the vaccine. But critical would be turning around and getting you to understand the importance of getting this vaccine, how this vaccine will protect you and your loved ones by preventing you from hopefully getting the virus. Or if you had the virus, continue protecting you, even if you had the virus. So the chance that we hear of getting the virus, working in healthcare is greater than most people. But with the vaccine and prioritizing the government has given us to receive the vaccine for you, it's a chance that we can get it done as soon as possible. I'm very excited if employees in our communities receive this vaccine as CVS and Walgreens get ready to roll it out in the next week and a half. We should be seeing this coming to our door. And we'll be talking about a little later how that will be happening.
Great. And Dr. Gahm, let's start with the content today. So what are the benefits of getting the vaccine, and why should someone consider getting it?
The benefit is simple. There are really two ways to be vaccinated against COVID. One is to get the vaccine, which is effective in 95% of people, terribly safe. We will talk through safety issues, I think, in a few minutes. It really involves nothing more than getting, for this first round, the 2 shots. The other way to get vaccinated is to go ahead and get COVID. And there you get a 3% chance to have serious long-term complications or to die. And you have to go through maybe weeks of being terribly ill. So 2 different choices for ways to get vaccinated. The easier, more effective choice is to get the vaccine.
Great. And, the questions that have been coming up that we've been hearing in the news, on TV, are there any real side effects of this vaccine? And if there are, what should people be worried about? And if there aren't, talk about those.
Sure. There are always side effects possible. Every vaccine, I've been doing influenza vaccinations for about 30 years for people. And every time I give it, I try to encourage them to say, I hope your arm hurts tonight. I hope you have a little fever. I hope you get a little headache. You're a little fatigued. Those are all normal immune responses. It just means that your immune system is seeing what it's supposed to see, reacting to it. You're triggering an immune response, and you're actively making antibodies. and you are going to remember what this virus looks like. And when you accidentally or for whatever reason run into the real thing, your immune system will recognize it quickly. You'll attack it. And the idea is that you'll either have a mild infection or no infection at all. That's what we hope for. With COVID vaccine, those particular side effects, so little fever, headache, fatigue, tenderness at the site of the vaccine, or muscle aches, happened in about 2 to 4% of people that got the vaccine. Cumulatively, having one or more of them was about 8 to 10% of the population, which really means 9 out of 10 people had no side effects at all. The other thing that people really want to know is they're scared of the big side effects. We heard earlier this week from Pfizer that they had 2 patients in the United Kingdom where they've started giving this who had allergic responses. That's always a possibility with a vaccine. With normal vaccines, including this one, the rate is about 1 person out of every million that gets a vaccine has an allergic response. For the 2 patients earlier this week with Pfizer, both of these people were people with a long history of severe allergies. They both had EpiPens. It wasn't a real surprise. So this isn't coming out of the blue that you just happen to have an anaphylactic reaction. So that may not always be the case, but it certainly was here. It's unusual. It isn't. Both of these people recovered quickly with pretty simple interventions. Other side effects, every vaccine and every infection has a possibility that it will trigger your immune system to do something it is not intended to do. For most vaccines, the chance of having a serious long-term side effect, we've heard a lot about Guillain-Barré over the years, which is certainly not anything you want to have, but the chances of getting that are about 1 in 2 million for most vaccines. We haven't seen that happen at all yet with any of the COVID vaccines, but time will tell as we start vaccinating more and more people. Nonetheless, a 1 in 2 million chance of getting a rare disease, it needs to be weighed against, like I said, 1 in 35 chance or a 3% chance of dying quickly or having serious long-term complications. Again, there were more than 3,000 deaths in the United States alone yesterday from COVID.
So we see the importance of this and why to move forward. But Jay, since you're on the front line of the operational stuff that's happening, can you talk about when someone can expect, when can this vaccine actually hit Vivage and Well-Age? And more importantly, are both residents and staff, are they able to get this? What's the details behind that?
A lot of our leaders yesterday were on a call with American Healthcare Association where they spoke about with CVS and Walgreens how to be rolling out the vaccine, and we got more information from a call today from the state call on the vaccine. So right now, what we know is the vaccines coming to the state right now. The state has about 47,000 doses coming to the state. The Pfizer, followed by the Moderna vaccine, would be approximately 100,000 doses coming to the state in the next 2 weeks. So we believe, the knowledge that we have right now, that we should see the vaccines in our communities the week of the 21st or the latest the week of the 28th. I wish I can give a better defined date than that, but that's the latest information we have. Right now, for our communities, the focus that the Chief Clinical Officer, Cynthia's working with Cynthia Conan and Dr. Gahm is making sure our communities are aware to start working with CVS and Walgreens to know when the clinics are happening. So, Danny, more importantly, we know it's coming. We know we're 1A. We know we're first on the list. The Walgreens and CVS will be setting up what they call clinics 3 times to come to the community and provide these vaccines. Our communities, people living independent or skilled facilities, will now be focusing on getting the place set up within the community. So when CVS notifies us and says we're coming, we're ready for them, and that will give us 3 times when they come to the community over a few days. So we can have the residents all vaccinated and staff, part of staff day 1, part of staff the second clinic, part of staff on the 3rd clinic. what's very important, as Dr. Gahm mentioned a minute ago, there will be some minor side effects, headaches, pain to the site of the injection, and I'm looking forward to getting my injection as soon as I can sign up and be in the community to get this injection. So we're going to have to work very hard. We have a lot of lead time. We have about a week to 10 days to get the communities ready to go. Walgreens is going to work a little closer with us and giving us some dates and times that we can select. CVS is not giving us an option. So to answer your question, Danny, I think in the next week to 10 days, every one of our communities will be ready for this. And I'm very excited about this. And again, I will, if I could be the first one in line to get the vaccine, I'm hoping Dr. Gahm will give it to me as I give him his vaccine. But we're all there, and our chief clinical officer is there with pushing and educating our staff. You know, one thing that Dr. Gahm spoke about a minute ago, how this affects people, we know from the literature, the knowledge, and actual day-to-day, 18% of our residents, not Vivage, but nationally, have passed away due to this virus. This virus is true, and it's a killer. And we got to protect the residents. But if we protect the residents, it's not enough if we don't have the staff. You know, one of the questions we ask constantly when we get this vaccine, will we stop wearing masks? Will we stop gowning? All that won't stop until we have 100% compliance. It will take a while to get there. But hopefully that's the goal as an organization, both in well-aged and Vivage communities, that we can educate our staff and feel comfortable so we get away from the way we are operating every day.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jay. And, you know, as I said, today would be an interactive live. So we did get what I would consider to be a good question today, Dr. Gahm, that I'd like you to answer. If someone has already had COVID, should they still get the vaccine?
Yeah, Catherine, that's a great question. The data looks pretty clear right now that if you've had COVID, even though you had an immune response, that's the only way you can get through it and live through it. The vaccine may increase your immunity a little bit. The CDC has come out to say that if you've had COVID in the previous 90 days, you should not be vaccinated. Given what I know about immunity, I would say from a population point of view, we would rather vaccinate a larger group in the population and protect people that have no immunity than use limited supply of vaccine that we're going to have on people that have already had COVID and have some immunity. But if it was more than 90 days ago and people want to be vaccinated, it's not going to hurt them. It is. That happened in the trials. They found out after they enrolled people that a number of people had already had COVID by looking at antibody studies, and the safety profile was the same. The efficacy was wonderful, obviously, but they certainly can be. My advice for the population would be to let people that haven't had COVID or been vaccinated go to the front of the line. If we get through all the vaccination steps over the next few months, we get to the general population, we're hoping by summer, that there'll be enough vaccine for anybody that wants it. That's when I would tell people that have previously had COVID, get in line this summer with everybody else when we have plenty.
Great answer. Yeah. And thank you, Catherine, for the interaction. Jay, could you talk a little bit about the process? So I believe there's some sort of consent forms involved. How does it work if someone wants to actually go through with the process of having the vaccine?
So we are receiving consent forms both from CVS and Walgreens. Again, different communities where have different pharmacies administering, actually providing the injection coming to the community. We will not be giving the injection. It will actually be pharmacists from Walgreens or CVS, not our nurses, at least the first go around. When the vaccine becomes more available, they may provide it to facilities provide. But right now, the vaccine from Pfizer requires special refrigeration. The Moderna vaccine requires standard refrigeration. The later vaccine will be easy for us to do. So right now, we will receive all the communities that are CVS will receive a consent form, and we're going to have to work with the families, the residents themselves, and also all the staff to sign the consent form. In addition, and the Walgreens also have a similar like form. In addition, we will be having the staff members sign a consent form if they either take the vaccine or elect not to take the vaccine. They will be signing an opt-out form that Cynthia and Dr. Gahm and the rest of the team have been working on putting that together. Be critical to understand the waiting to take this, understand that you may leave yourself exposed to potentially getting the COVID virus if you don't get the vaccine. So it's a process. It's the form from CVS is 3 pages, and the form from Walgreens is 2 pages. So 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to fill the form out. But it will take a lot of our staff time working with the families and residents to get them signed up. What is critical that we do this.
Thank you, Jay. And, we got a comment from Shelly, which leads us into one of our next questions that we already had up on the docket today. But Shelly says, if a healthcare worker is unable, for various reasons, to get the vaccination this first round of 3 clinics, what is the next predicted time frame that it might be available? And whichever one of you wants to take that, go ahead.
I'll be glad to. You don't want to miss the first round. You want to make this a priority. You want to be vaccinated. Even now is a high priority time not to be exposed to COVID. If you're a healthcare worker, the last thing you want to do is get COVID a week or 2 before you could get started on the vaccine. It looks like if you miss it this first round, you just fall to the back of the line. You become part of the general population. And next summer, you could probably get vaccinated. That's all we've heard, although we haven't heard specifics to say that's for sure going to be the way. That is what has been stated so far. So I think for any reason you were squeamish, you wanted other people to get vaccinated first, you were on vacation, whatever it is, if the vaccine's important, you need to do it when it comes.
Yeah. So what I'm really hearing is that you should get it done. Definitely should get it done. Shelly asked about those extenuating circumstances, but what I'm also hearing is that if you're a healthcare worker, you're in the front line of this first round. You're a priority. And if you do miss this priority opportunity, like you said, Dr. Gahm, you get put into the general public then. So it could be months before you get a second shot at getting this vaccine. But again, we have to respect the people that do have various reasons that they aren't going to get this first vaccine. And as Jay said, there will be a formal opportunity if you need to for you to opt out of it as well.
Danny, I would add to that we don't know for sure because we went through the state. And we had Diane Herrera speak to us today, but we don't know for sure. But we'll know more about it. To go back to Shelly's question, if an employee for some reason misses the 3 clinics in a community, will we be able to bring them to another community to get the injection? That may be a possibility because this is not all going to happen in a matter of 7 days. They have over 1,000 communities in the state of Colorado that are going to be providing this vaccine to licensed facilities for nursing assisted living, to group homes and other institutions that fall in the licensed category. So there may be a later date that may be in one of the other Vivage or well-aged communities that we can bring an employee to. But we don't know that for sure, but it's something we'll definitely work on and see if that's a possibility. If there's a circumstance where an employee can't get the injection, and maybe the example is where an employee may have COVID right now and they have to wait before that happens. And I guess Dr. Gahm could speak more about that.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Gahm.
Well, all I was going to say is, yeah, if they got COVID and that's the reason they didn't get it, they would no longer qualify to get vaccinated for 90 days. But if they were in the hospital, a heart attack, or at a funeral, whatever, I imagine there'll be some flexibility to move a few people around. We certainly don't want to do it on a widespread basis because scheduling would be a nightmare.
Got it. Okay. And Dr. Gahm, can you talk a little bit about this program that you're working with Lilly?
Lilly has been using the trial. It's called the Blaze trials, BLAZE. What they have done is they took a patient who had COVID earlier this year, recovered well, and developed really high levels of what they, for whatever designation, considered a very potent neutralizing antibody. There are different kinds of antibodies. This is the antibody that they believe finds the COVID, attacks it, neutralizes it. So they took that antibody, they isolated it, and then began synthesizing it. And in order then to get this as a treatment, the idea would be if I've got a lot of antibody that is specific to COVID and I infuse it into your body, then if you have COVID, it'll go attack it. There are actually two different trials we participated with. The first was to say, if I give you this antibody before you have COVID, and it's just in there, and we think it's going to last 6 to 8 months, if you then get exposed, will it go attack and keep you from getting sick? That's the part of the trial we've been actively involved with. We did that in 3 or 4 facilities where we offered this to staff when we had a positive COVID patient or a positive COVID staff member in the facility. Lilly came out and over the course of a week offered this antibody infusion to patients and staff who had not yet had COVID, and then they would follow them for 6 months. And as the study part, they would either get the antibody or placebo, so just plain serum. And at the end of the trial, they would try to see how many people got COVID and if they got the placebo or they got the real antibody. And the hope would be that they got the placebo and then ended with COVID. That part of the trial, even though we were actively involved and hit 4 or 5 facilities with it, has been put on hold, in part because using this technology, this treatment for active COVID, new COVID, was approved with an EUA. So we got involved with that. In addition to being approved, the government said, you still have to do the research to show it works. So we were on the research arm part of that, where if somebody had new positive COVID, they would come out and infuse the antibodies or infuse placebo to see if it made a difference. So we've been involved with that, but even that now has been put on hold in Colorado for a month. In January, they think they will reactivate that here.
Great. And we do see some comments rolling in. Some of the questions you're asking, we did cover a little earlier in the video. So I want to encourage you, after we're done, go back and watch that. And as always, I want to encourage you, if you have questions, to reach out to your community HR department, your administrator, your director of nursing, to get your direct questions to your answers, or answers to your questions. But Dr. Gahm, talk about how this shot is administered. Is this a lot different than the typical flu shot we know?
Nope, just like it. It is, other than having to be kept in really cold conditions, it's just an injection. Not the Lilly. The Lilly is an IV infusion, but the vaccine itself is just an injection. And with any luck, like I said, your arm will be sore at the place where you had the infection. The injection.
Great. And what I've heard is there's also a follow-up policy, right? So this isn't a one shot and done process. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, that gets to be really important with the new vaccine type. This is called a messenger RNA vaccine, which is a fairly new technology, which is really wonderful because it's easier to make. It's quicker to make, faster, which is why they're the first 2 out of the chute to get approved. But it does require 2 doses. So you get a priming dose, and with Pfizer, 3 weeks later, you're going to get your booster dose. With Moderna, it's 4 weeks later, you get a booster dose. And it's a week after the second dose before you actually have your peak immunity. So the other thing you have to be mindful of is not to get the first dose and then think, okay, now I'm immune. Now I don't have to wear a mask. I can take more chances. In fact, it's not until a week after the second dose that you hit the immunity period.
Thank you, Dr. Gahm. So, again, we want to encourage your questions to come in. We can have someone follow up with your questions directly in the comment section below. And again, want to encourage you to really reach out to your local resources that you can. Let's see. What have we not covered?
There's a penicillin allergy. I'll touch on that.
You want to touch on that? Okay.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with a penicillin allergy. If you have a penicillin allergy, that's no reason not to get this vaccine. If I had somebody that really carried an EpiPen because they have repeated severe anaphylactic reactions to other things, I would probably pre-treat them with a non-steroidal. If it's severe, maybe even steroids for a day or two ahead of time. But I would not tell them not to get the vaccine.
Great. So Jay, for anybody that's still on the fence about getting the vaccine, as somebody that's been on the front line, working with local communities and local organizations, what do you have to say to the employees that are kind of on the fence? How should they move forward?
The employees who have elected to work in healthcare, you've taken upon yourself to protect the lives and safety of the residents who live in our communities, whether it's assisted living, skilled communities. And this is the way we keep them safe. Clearly, a lot of our communities, the residents do not go out and the staff go in and out. You have the option of doing that. The residents have lived in isolation, they live in separation, kept to the rooms. It's not been an easy 9 months for residents. This is the fastest way to make the residents feel safe by you getting the vaccine. We know that 90+% of our residents, 95% of residents will get the vaccine. They will be safe. But you are still going out to the community every day. You go home to your families, you go shopping, and you have potential of getting this virus and bringing it back into communities. By the fact that you elect to be in healthcare, whether you're working in dietary, in laundry, in housekeeping, nurse, bookkeeping, in the community, you're elected to protect the residents in the communities. So I beg you to consider taking the vaccine. The question was asked on the screen over there, are we going to mandate it? There's a lot of talk back and forth whether we have right to mandate or not, and clearly the same as we gone down the flu vaccine. A lot of people have been in long-term care for a lot of years. It wasn't mandated. Now the flu vaccine is mandated. We have to achieve a 90 employees have to take the flu vaccine requirement. We're not there yet, but I would ask you to help us get there. We need to get this. If we're going to stop this vaccine, otherwise we're going to continue spreading it. Every one of our communities is getting tested now, literally once or twice a week. Employees are getting tested. Not an easy test, but you see the results. We have to stop it for the fact that you've elected that you're in a healthcare facility. So we have not, as a company, we have decided not to require, but as a company, we have decided and we're going to encourage you as best as we can to get the vaccine, save your loved ones, keep the family safe, and keep the residents in the community safe. And for that, I beg you to consider it as we enter the holiday season to think about what can I do to keep my family safe. Since I'm working in healthcare, I don't want to bring it home, and to keep the residents safe because I don't want to bring it in the community.
Well, thank you, Jay, and thank you, Dr. Gahm, for adding some value today, answering some real pertinent questions that have come up in the community. And, maybe you're watching this in the replay or later down the road. If you do have questions, again, we're going to encourage you to reach out to the resources within your community, being your community HR department, your administrator, or your director of nursing. So, Jay and Dr. Gahm, I want to thank you again today for adding some value about this COVID vaccine.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dr. Gahm. And thank you,
Bye, everybody.
Medical Officer. Thank you.